You know, every dusty old thing you find in an attic, it's got a story, right? Well, today we're going to uncover one of those stories, hidden inside this forgotten wooden box. It's an old radio. And we're not just going to dust it off, we're bringing a real piece of history back to life. And believe it or not, we're going to find a surprisingly dangerous secret hidden inside.
So here it is. This is our patient for today, a Fairbanks Morris, Model 58T1. Yeah, it's definitely seen better days, you can tell. But underneath all that wear and tear is a totally revolutionary design, one that put radios in millions of homes. But it also has this hidden danger, something that could give you a really nasty shock. So let's figure out how to bring it back to life, but do it safely.
Okay, so what is this thing really? It's not just some random antique you'd find at a flea market. Nope. This is part of a massive family of radios, a design that became a fixture in American homes for decades. You could say it's the design that really democratized entertainment. And the name, All-American 5, pretty much tells you everything you need to know. That number 5, that's the key. It stands for the 5 vacuum tubes that made its design so simple and so incredibly effective.
So what was the philosophy behind this thing? It was simple. Make it as cheap as humanly possible. And the biggest way they saved money, it was kind of brilliant. They just got rid of the heavy, expensive power transformer. Now that one little choice is what made radios affordable for literally millions of people. But it's also what created that hidden hazard I was talking about.
And here we go. This is the hazard. Because they took out that transformer to save a buck. The radio's entire metal frame, the part they call the chassis, could be directly connected to the live wire coming right out of your wall outlet.
This is what they call a hot chassis. And it's no joke. If you touch the exposed metal chassis and at the same time you touch something that's grounded, like a water pipe or even the little screw on a light switch plate, well, the electricity has a new path. And that path is right through you. The early models were even sketchier, because with their non-polarized plugs, it was a 50-50 shot that the chassis was live even when the radio was turned off. Crazy, right?
So how do people who restore these things even handle this? Well, they follow a very strict set of rules. First off, the cabinet and the knobs, they're your first line of defense, they're insulators. Next, installing a modern polarized plug is a super simple, absolutely vital safety upgrade. But, and this is a big but, for any actual repair work, an isolation transformer is completely non-negotiable. It basically separates the radio from your house wiring, which makes it safe to poke around in there.
Okay, so now that we've got a healthy respect for the electrical dangers, let's talk about the outside. I mean, decades of life have really taken a toll on this poor wooden cabinet. The finish is totally shot, and that thin layer of decorative wood, it's called veneer, is lifting up. It's time to bring back its original shine.
You know, a good restoration is all about being methodical. Before you even think about stripping off that old finish, you've got to prepare. First, you document everything. Take pictures, make sketches, so you can recreate the original look. Then, you take it all apart, carefully saving every last screw. You have to fix the structural stuff first, like gluing down that peeling veneer. And you absolutely have to protect the history that's still inside.
And check this out. Here's a simple but totally brilliant trick for preserving stuff. See that old paper label? That's part of the radio's history. It's super fragile, totally irreplaceable. So to protect it from the harsh chemicals you use for stripping, restorers create this little paper shield. They carefully tape it down so the adhesive only touches the wood around it. Just like that, a piece of history is saved.
Now, most of these old radios were finished with lacquer, and lacquer has this one really key property. It dissolves in lacquer thinner. This makes stripping it, well, it's messy, but it's pretty straightforward. You just use some plastic scrapers and brushes, and you can gently get all that old gooey finish off. Then you're down to the bare wood, ready for a whole new life.
All right, while the cabinet is drying, it's time to get under the hood and look at the electronics. And when you're talking about old tube radios, there is one job that is pretty much always necessary. It's what hobbyists call recapping.
This might surprise you, but the vacuum tubes? They're usually fine. The real problem parts are the capacitors. See, the materials they used back then, stuff like wax paper and electrolytic paste, they just break down over the decades. They dry out, they absorb moisture, and they start to get electrically leaky. That's what causes all that humming and distortion, or sometimes just nothing at all.
So, job number 1 for any restorer is to find and replace these little ticking time bombs. The rule of thumb is really clear. Any paper, molded paper, or electrolytic capacitors, they have got to go. They're just not reliable anymore. On the other hand, you've got mica and ceramic capacitors. Those guys are super stable, they almost never fail, so you can usually just leave them right where they are.
And here we are, back to our Fairbanks Morse. You can see the chassis is completely out of the cabinet now. The speaker, the dial, all the hardware, it's all been carefully taken off. It's sitting there on the workbench, ready for that supercritical recapping job that's going to make sure it plays safely and reliably for many more years.
Okay, so after all this work, the careful stripping, the gluing, the soldering, you might start to wonder about the bigger picture, like what's the point of this whole hobby? And what are these things actually worth?
Yeah, that's the question everybody asks, right? Is this old thing I found worth a fortune? And the answer is, well, it's complicated. The value of a vintage radio depends on a whole bunch of surprising factors.
Believe it or not, the biggest things are its cosmetic condition and if it's complete. A radio with a perfect original finish and all its original knobs, that's way more valuable than one that works perfectly but looks beat up. Rarity and demand for a specific model are huge, too, like those really colorful Catalan plastic radios. And here's the kicker. Whether it actually works or not is often secondary for a serious collector, because hey, they can usually get it working again themselves.
Now, I know all this talk about capacitors and veneer might sound a little daunting, but here's the best part. You don't have to be an expert to get into this. This hobby absolutely thrives because of an incredible community of enthusiasts who have spent decades sharing everything they know.
I mean, you can find amazing advice on online forums. You can download the original schematics for free from these huge online archives, and you can buy every single replacement part you need from dedicated suppliers. There's a whole ecosystem out there just waiting to help the next person who happens to pull a dusty old radio out of an attic.
So, there you have it. We've gone from a dusty old box to a glowing piece of living history. The All-American 5 tells this incredible story of engineering that was both brilliant and, frankly, a little bit dangerous. But it also tells the story of the passionate community that keeps these things alive. It just goes to show you, sometimes the most fascinating stories are waiting right inside the things we've all forgotten.